Welcome back to the Lion's Den. In today's episode, we speak with Tom Ruwitch, who is the founder of Story Power Marketing. And it is what it sounds like. It is a marketing firm specializing in helping businesses to tell their story properly in order to increase engagement and conversions with their potential customers. Tom is a master storyteller. He's been doing it forever. And actually, in this episode, we go back through a couple of the incredible stories in his life. He had a tech startup during the dot-com boom and bust. After that, he started a email marketing company when email was still fairly new. Grew that over 18, 19 years, ended up selling it. So he's got experience selling companies. Just a guy with a wealth of experience who now is running a very, very cool company that you should all check out. So give this a listen. Tom, welcome to the Lion's Den.
Nico, I am happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks since I was on your podcast. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. And I understand you've had a baby since we were last together in the same digital conference room.
That's right. Yeah. So if I sort of doze off during this, don't take offense to that. I just haven't had a lot of sleep.
I know that feeling. Yeah, I'm the father of twins, so those first couple of months,
I can't even imagine having two at the same time.
It'll pass, and then you'll have a beautiful, infant, then a toddler, then a teenager. Whew. Have fun. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited. So, all right, let's dive in. We're definitely going to talk about your marketing firm, Story Power Marketing, obviously, and about the really cool work that you all do. But first, I wanted to go back in time a little bit and hear a little bit more about your story. And so, I was reading through your LinkedIn page and scrolled all the way down to the bottom. I saw that you went to Yale undergrad, so immediate credibility points there. But what jumped out at me when I was looking at that was that you majored in history.
Yeah.
And so do you think that played the sort of formative role setting you down this path to where you are now, which is telling stories?
I do think that there's a connection for sure. So I'm a big believer in liberal arts education. I think that whether you're studying history or anthropology or even English literature, the ability to pay attention, to distill information, and then to be able to express it back in a way that's coherent and meaningful and helpful to whoever your audience may be is a really valuable skill set to have. And so as a history major, I was doing a lot of that. And that ultimately translated into work that I did after graduation. I was a school teacher for a short time. And then I was a journalist for 10 years. And a lot of those skills, researching, distilling, communicating in writing, all of those were things that I can point back to my work in school and being a history major. And then ultimately, all of that is applicable to the work that I now do as a marketer. These skills do carry over for sure. I love that question. You're the first person to ever ask it. So thank you.
Well, it is always fascinating to me, like undergrad degrees, because I mean, so many people, myself included, to a large degree, we go to undergrad, we learn something, and then we do something that is, I mean, you're not a historian and I'm not an economist. That's what I majored in.
Right.
Yeah. But those degrees did give us just sort of this like framework through which we see the entire world now. And so it really is very formative. So you mentioned that you were a reporter. So I was also very curious about that, because Yale degree, and then you go and you do journalism and you're a reporter, which is not the most lucrative road after being a Yale grad. So how did you make that decision?
Yeah, how did I make that decision? When when I was nearing graduation, I think the thing that I most wanted to do was go to work for a front office for a Major League Baseball team. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a big fan of the St. Louis Cardinals. I actually wrote letters to Major League Baseball teams seeing if they'd hire me for whatever, and that didn't get me very far. Those jobs are in high demand, and I think that it goes back to your original question. I think the thing that I really loved to do was to feed my curiosity, learn something new, um, uh, gather information, and then distill it, not just for my own sake, but for the sake of people who could benefit from hearing about this and learning about that. And of course, journalism gets a lot of criticism, rightly so. There's a lot of horrible journalism out there, and it's all caught up in this political divide that we live in today. But at its heart, it's a noble activity to look at the world around you, make some decisions about what you think is important and other people should know. Try to do that through a lens of impartiality, of course, and then to gather the information and share it and teach and help others. And when you're caught up in it from that perspective of mission and vision, it's a very noble profession, and there are a lot of parallels again between that work and the work that I do today as a marketer. I really enjoyed writing. I really enjoyed storytelling. I really enjoyed all teaching. And so all of those things were part of what I was able to do when I was a journalist. Of course, the timing of it wasn't ideal. I entered that profession in the 90s when it was quickly becoming a dying industry. And
Mhm.
so by the end of the 90s, I'd had enough and had seen the writing on the wall and had become very, very, very fascinated with the potential of the internet and digital media and the way that marketing and advertising was changing. And by the late 90s, I was all in as a entrepreneur doing internet things.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because it seems like you did finally make a turn towards your sports enthusiasm when you
Yeah.
started the tech startup Sports Huddle. And I'm looking at
Yeah.
the dates on your LinkedIn page for that, and it's July of '99 through January of '01. So there's a major .com situation
Yeah.
happening there. So tell me the story of what went down.
Yeah, well, I could tell you a 2-hour version or a 2-minute version. The 2-minute version is that another fellow and I at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch left the Post-Dispatch to form Sports Huddle, and we grew that company from 2 to 85 employees in 18 months. We raised many millions of dollars. The business was all about providing software back to newspapers and other print publishing companies to collect and gather and publish amateur and high school sports stats. So newspapers were already in the business of publishing those little box scores in fine print for
Mhm.
football or basketball or whatever. And what we recognized is that that could be done in a much more efficient way, and that could be done in a way that's scaled across a national footprint, and that data would be very, very, very valuable, and that newspapers would benefit from having that data both on a local level as well as having it tied in on a national level. And we rolled this thing out for newspapers across the country, every major newspaper chain, every major market. We were on track to have this in media companies that touched 100% of the high schools around the country, and in newspapers where it was running. The Denver Rocky Mountain News had our system running, and so they were publishing the stats not just in print but online. And and this was around the time that the Columbine shooting happened. We were the number 2 trafficked section of that newspaper, next to the special section on Columbine that was getting traffic from around the country. We were the number 1 or number 2 most trafficked section in the Washington Post and the Boston Globe. The New York Times was rolling us out. Major newspapers all around the country, Chicago, LA, and so forth. And what happened? You pegged it on the calendar. 1999 was sort of the height of the .com boom, the first big .com boom. And 2000 into 2001 was when the waves receded. There were a lot of good companies that were doing great things, that were getting funding and still did a little boom and bust. There were a lot of bad companies that got a lot of money and that busted as well. When the tide receded, it carried
Mhm.
everybody out. And really what happened with us is we were 2 years into a 4-year to profitability plan, and and the market completely dried up. We had meetings with venture capitalists who said, "Oh, we think that your estimates of when you will become a $100 million company are conservative. We think you're actually going to hit that milestone sooner than you think." And we said, "Great. When do we get that investment that you're here to talk about?" And they would say things like, "Well, we're not investing right now. Nobody's investing right now," even though they very much liked what we were doing. So we sold the company. Um, and As a long story there. I promised a 2-minute story. I think you got the 5-minute version. We sold the company, and then the company that ultimately bought it sold, sort of stripped out the heart of what we were doing. Most of the newspaper companies, uh, most of the newspaper companies went their separate ways. We never dropped the ball for any of those companies. And then the company that bought ours sold the shell of what was left of it. They had enough cash to kind of hang around, uh, strip the thing bare, and then they sold it to CBS Sports for about $50 million several years later. So
Wow.
that one was a near miss, a bit of a heartbreak, but wow, I learned an awful lot. And one of the things that I learned in doing it, part of our business model was reliant on display advertising. We were building these websites for all of these newspapers, and the revenue that we were expecting to get in the short run, not in the long run, but in the short run, was fundamentally display advertising, and the world wasn't really ready for it. And so the revenue flow from that was not as quick as we had anticipated. And out of that story, I spent a lot of time trying to understand, all right, we're in the middle of this internet thing. It's here to stay. There's kind of booms and busts that are happening. And how is it that buyers and sellers are going to connect? That's the big question that all of us, are who are running businesses and trying to market and sell, are trying to figure out what are the most efficient ways for buyers and sellers to connect. And this promise of display advertisements plopped at the top of websites, mm, it's taken hold and still is very effective, but it's not the best way. And I really began to get fascinated with the notion of email marketing and how buyers and sellers can connect and what really amount to one-to-one conversations. Sure, when you send an email, you're sending one email to many people, but it is a seller, a vendor, a company, an expert, whatever it may be, really having what, when done well, feels like that one-to-one conversation. And I was fascinated by that. And that brings me to the next step in my journey. So I'll stop my 2-minute, 4-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute story, whatever it was, and let you ask the next question.
No, it is a very fascinating story, and I am kind of curious. Like my mind, I'm trying to play out if somehow that bust, the .com bust, wouldn't have happened, and you had held on to Sports Huddle. I think you would have had a major challenge ahead of you anyway, as the newspaper industry started to die. Well, I guess it would consolidate first, but
Yeah.
if all of your customers was this like fragmented newspaper market, and then that started to disappear, you would have had a massive pivot ahead. So I don't know. It would have been a different challenge than the one that you had to live through. But in any
Yeah.
case,
Yeah, and I could, I you could get me going about the newspaper industry in a lot of ways. I believe, and we believed at the time, that the newspaper industry was really well suited to win the game because they owned, until it was taken from them, classified advertising, obituaries, high school sports stats, a lot of different things. And one of the conversations we were having with newspapers at the time is, look, you have to figure out how to digitize all of this stuff and
mm,
deliver this stuff online to provide value and a reason for readership to come in. They lost that to Craigslist and other classified advertising things. They lost it in car sales. They lost it to and whatever the online obit thing is.
mhm,
Um, yeah, but newspapers and online newspapers are still there, and I'm
yeah,
pretty confident that now 20 plus years later, that this could have still been a part of newspaper websites. Every single newspaper client that we had was still, is still out there with an online version of their site. And we actually would have been helping them because we were driving massive traffic to their websites, even back in 1999.
Wow.
Yeah.
So .com bust, you sell Sports Huddle. You were fascinated at that time with email marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when you start Market Volt.
Yep.
And that company, it looks like you ran for about 19 years. So that was no booms or busts, it looks like. Just one big boom, maybe all the way through.
Yeah, a gradual boom. That's
right. A gradual boom. And I'm trying to think about, man, I don't really remember where email was in 2001, 2002. Was it?
You've got
was
mail.
It just
That's where
AOL.
email,
Yeah.
Okay. There was AOL. People, I don't even remember whether Gmail was a big thing at that time. People were beginning to use, Outlook was there. Most people had, maybe they had Outlook, maybe they had AOL, Yahoo Mail existed. But 2001 was really, really, really early in the game. Most people had not heard of the notion of email marketing, one-to-many email marketing, much less tried it. And some of the other companies that became big gorillas in the space, Constant Contact, started right about that same moment. MailChimp, maybe at about the same moment, maybe a little later. A lot of the other companies that we now know as big marketing automation players, the ConvertKit or ClickFunnels or things like that, not there yet. So we were in the game very, very, very early on, and we were more interested in having relationships with our clients. Companies like Constant Contact were much more about volume, bring them in, sign them up, say goodnight and good luck, have a customer support staff that kind of sort of would answer your questions. And I remember reading an annual report from Constant Contact that said that they were experiencing, and they were celebrating this, they had lowered their annual customer churn to 33%. I think that's the number. So, back in the day, and still massive floods of advertising, draw people in, sign them up, hope that more than 67% of them are around next year, and just build this massive volume business. We weren't interested in that, especially because so many of our clients would come to us and say, oh, cool. Yeah. Software, create emails, send them to a bunch of people, track them, automate follow-up. That sounds cool. Sell us a list. And we'd say, oh, no. That's not how this is going to work. You're going to build a list. And they'd say, build a list? What's build a list? And now we were having conversations, and there was a lot of, most of the businesses we were working with were still very steeped in offline marketing, direct mail and print advertising and things like that. And so we built an agency around the software that was designed for the purpose of helping our clients just kind of figure out the whole marketing thing. It was changing so rapidly then. I joke that, in the first many years of running email marketing, every year I would see another article, I would hear another podcast or see another video, or have a friend come to me who'd say, oh, email marketing is dead. So year after year after year, people are telling me email marketing is dead, and email marketing is far from dead, and was never dying. But businesses needed to figure it out. Where does this fit with everything else? And all of a sudden, social media comes along. Where does that fit? All of a sudden, text marketing became a thing, and then kind of faded off, and now is back as more of a thing. Where does it all fit? So we built an agency around the software company, and spent a lot of time helping our clients understand how to attract leads, build lists, engage them, keep them fired up, convert leads to warm prospects, to clients using email and other media. And the thing that I experienced over those 19 years was that when a business person is struggling with their marketing, one of the very first things that they will do is chase the shiny tech squirrel. Oh, I need a better machine for email marketing or marketing automation or building a website or whatever the case may be. And then they may also chase the shiny tactic. Ooh, teach me how to build a better funnel, or I need a different trick. Or they'll chase the shiny tactician. I need a better coach. I need to buy a different course. I need to, have somebody giving me new strategies. When at the heart of great marketing is producing great content and great messaging. And so many people who struggle with their marketing are chasing down tech or tacticians or shiny new tactics without looking in the mirror and saying, well, maybe the content that I'm putting out there is kind of boring and prospect repellent. And I was experiencing so much of that through my 19 years at MarketVault that by the time I got to about the last 5 years of that work, I was spending a massive amount of time coaching my clients around how to transform their content from boring and prospect repelling to captivating and client attracting. And by the time in 2019, just before the pandemic, very good timing. I wish that I could claim that I knew that how awesome the timing was. We closed the deal and signed the paperwork to sell the software to a great company called Benchmark Email. And that deal closed on December 31st, 2019. I kept the consulting and coaching side of the business and renamed it Story Power Marketing. And that's what I've been focusing on ever since, which is helping people, especially those who package their expertise for sale, helping them to transform their content from boring and prospect repelling to client attracting. And I emphasize those folks who are packaging their expertise for sale: coaches, consultants, professional service providers, and so forth. And the reason that this is especially important and valuable to them is that people are hiring them because of what they know. They hire you for your expertise. And so it's very easy to fall in the trap of, if I share things I know, here's the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA, that people will fall at my feet and hire me. And that's not how it works. You have to create content that's entertaining and captivating and story powered, and you have to create a lot of it and deliver it consistently. And so many of the people that I work with find that pretty hard. And our job is to make it easy. Our job is to teach you how it can be very systematic, how it's not a magic art, how you don't have to be a creative unicorn to produce good content, how you will suffer if you simply rely on the AI easy button and say, write an email about topic X. We teach all of that, and we teach then how to use AI to be a valuable assistant, but you're still guiding the ship based on very simple and easy to master frameworks that will teach you.
So how do you turn content from boring to exciting and engaging and story powered? I mean, what does that look like? How does that happen?
Yeah, I'll give you a real life example. So an executive coach. This executive coach works with business owners, and for lack of a better term, she helps them escape the hamster wheel. Okay. One of the things she teaches to help them do that is how to delegate properly. Pretty common thing for an executive coach to do. She teaches a whole bunch of stuff: delegation, communication, time management, time blocking, things like that, but delegation. So she wanted to, and she did before she hired us, write a blog post. And the blog post started out something like, delegation is one of the most important business skills that a business owner can master. Here are 5 tips to delegate properly. Okay. And that is an example of information only, blah, 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 boring, prospect repelling content. By the way, if you ask AI to write a post for you on delegation, they can, 5 seconds later, that post will be in your Word document and you can send that out, but it's not going to be any better and produce any better outcome than this executive coach produced. Mm-hmm. So we sat down with this coach and we went through our process of what we call the plan framework. And we said, what's the big promise here? Why are we even talking about delegation? And she began to talk about, well, the whole point is to help escape the hamster wheel, to help create a situation where you're not running a company with the weight of the whole company on your shoulders. You're not feeling like everything depends on me. And we're coaching her to think about it from an emotional perspective. People are buying, or at least expressing interest and leaning in based on transformation of feeling. So I am helping, the coach says, transform from that feeling of overwhelm to relief, from that feeling of everything depends on me to, oh, I can get away. And that's the big promise. The lesson is you have to delegate, and here are the tips to do it. The problem with the information only is here's a lesson that you need to know, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. And everybody's sitting there thinking, well, I don't care. Why? The promise. That's why. The promise. And so you start with the promise, you connect it to the lesson, then you wrap it in an anecdote. And I said to her, hey, do you have a story from your own life or from a client experience? She said, oh, yeah. It was super easy for her once I asked that question and framed it that way, for her to say, oh, yeah, I have a client who's owned a business for 20 plus years and has never taken a vacation, or had never taken a vacation longer than a long weekend, until I taught him how to delegate. And then he took a 2-week vacation, and the company was running better than it ever had. And he was able to get away. So the new post and the new email had the subject line, how a stressed out owner let go and got away. How a stressed out owner let go and got away. That in itself is a little story. It implies a transformation. And anybody who she's trying to reach, who sees that headline, they're going to think, oh, I'm stressed out. I'd like to get away. And in they lean. And then the story starts. I know a business owner who never took a vacation longer than a long weekend over 20 years, until last year, when he took a 2-week vacation. Everything was great. When he returned, his employees were fired up, on and on and on and on. What had changed? He learned to delegate. Here are 5 tips for you to delegate properly. Now I'm leaning in. Now I'm paying attention. Now this thing is relevant and meaningful to me. And I'm reading it thinking, this executive coach gets me. This executive coach is talking to me. And you read to the bottom where the call to action says, hey, if you'd like to learn to delegate more effectively, transform your life so you can let go and get away, click here to schedule an appointment. And the difference between the boring and the brilliant is 3 lines into the boring and prospect repelling, the prospects repelled, not reading, not getting to the bottom, not clicking the call to action. And in this case, even if they read to the bottom and don't click the call to action that day, they're thinking, she gets me. They're tuning into the next email. They're paying attention. They want more email. One of the things that we teach is that volume does matter. And people will constantly say to me, oh, I don't want to send too many emails. People don't like that. And the reality is, it's not that people don't like getting emails. It's that people don't like getting boring and irrelevant emails that flood their inbox. I switched over time from a long time ago, monthly emails, and then weekly emails also a long time ago, to twice and then 3 times a week. And now I send emails Monday through Friday morning. And if I'm a little late getting my Monday morning email out, I get emails from my readers saying, where's your email? No one is ever complaining to me about the emails, because they're interesting and captivating and fun, and they lead to people raising their hand, taking that next step. Plan framework, by the way: promise, lesson, anecdote, next step. Every email suggests the next step. It might be sign up for my webinar. It might be schedule a meeting with me. It might be buy this product. But it doesn't, in the context of good story-powered content, it doesn't feel pitchy. It doesn't feel like you're prodding. They want to learn how to delegate in the example I gave. And so they want to click that button to schedule the appointment, or they'll wait for some time down the road, but they're still tuned in for the long haul. So
yeah,
there's an example. Yeah.
No, it makes total sense. And so is story power marketing very focused on storytelling through email marketing like you did at Market Volt, or do you look at other mediums? Do you
Yeah.
help people tell stories on LinkedIn? Like what else do you guys?
Yeah, 100%. So that framework that I just shared, focusing on, what's the promise I'm making? What's the connected lesson? How can I make this more entertaining through an anecdote? And what's the next step? That framework can apply to social media posts. That framework can apply to a video script. That framework applies to your webinars or your stage presentations or whatever you're doing. It is all about making sure that you connect with the buyer and why they should care. It's all about giving them a path to achieve that promise. You need to learn to delegate. You need to hire me to achieve this outcome. It's about making it entertaining through the use of stories. And you can do that even in short things in a social post. And then it's also about having a call to action, which, when done properly in this context, is not about pitching and prodding and chasing. It's about giving them an opportunity to get something that you've already convinced them they want and they need. So it applies to all media that you may use to distribute content.
Got it. Do you think that these experts that you work with, consultants, authors, coaches, those sorts of people that you work with, if they were to try to, do this on their own, do you think they run into writer's block, or they may feel like it's hard for them to come up with stories? Or do you think sticking to the plan framework allows them to overcome writer's block? How should they deal with that problem?
Yeah. So I know so many coaches, consultants, business owners in general who do suffer from writer's block, who sit in front of the blank screen and it's sort of once upon a time, now what? And the reason that we have the Story Power Content Transformation Academy, which is my sort of core mastermind program for business owners, is to teach them that this can be a systematic process. So it's easy for me to say, well, you just need to know the promise and you then need to know the lesson. There's a system for doing that, for understanding what makes your prospects tick. And the metaphor that I use for that is, it's like going out there in a systematic way. Anybody can do it. You don't have to be a creative unicorn. Gather the building blocks. And once you have the building blocks, content creation is not an act of creative magic. Content creation is an act of systematic assembly. The blueprint or the architecture for the content is different for a social post versus a video versus an email. But that part's easy to master or even reverse engineer by looking at how others are doing it. The building blocks are the key. And if you gather the building blocks in advance, then when you sit down in front of the computer, it's plop, 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 assembling pieces in a systematic way. And there's no more writer's block. One of the great copywriters ever was a guy named Eugene Schwartz. And Eugene Schwartz wrote in the 70s and 80s, back in print days, and made millions and millions of dollars for his clients and for himself, mostly writing long form sales letters, magazine ads, things like that. And Eugene Schwartz never suffered from writer's block, never. And when people would ask him about how and what was his process, he has a famous quote where he says, content is not written, or copy is not written. He was a copywriter. Copy is assembled. And that's exactly what we're talking about here, that if you are able to understand how to gather the building blocks, assembling stuff is so much easier than sitting in front of a screen and thinking to yourself, what am I going to write? Writing is hard. Assembling is easy. And that's our mission, to turn this from hard to easy.
I love it. Makes total sense. So Obviously, people can go to your website. We're gonna link to that for sure. But please tell me you're giving away something for free that people can digest and start to put some of this stuff into practice.
I am giving something away for free that people can digest and put into practice. Thank you for asking. And the way that you can go to get that, and I'm just going to pop my screen open so I don't flub what I say here. You could go to Your Gift from Tom. Just mush all those words together. yourgiftfromtom.com/lion, Lion. Your Gift from Tom/lion. And what you'll get on that page is something called 9 Secrets to Create Client Attracting Content. It's a free download. It's going to help you create story powered, informative content so that you can achieve that promise that we talked about. It's all about how are you going to stand out in a crowded marketplace? How are you going to build a following of engaged fans and turn them into clients without feeling stuck, without suffering from writer's block? So if you go again to yourgiftfromtom.com/lion, you can download that thing for free. And you also can go to storypowermarketing.com, where you can sign up for my emails. There are other free resources available. And it's all, as I said, it's all about trying to turn this process from hard to easy, and also from kind of fruitless to fruitful. So many people are frustrated because they bought into the idea that, oh, I have to create content, I have to post on social, I have to send emails. Everybody says you have to. And then they do it, and it's hard and it's not working. And so they stop, or they just keep slogging on through the process. And it doesn't have to be that way. It can be so much easier, and it can be so much more effective.
Amazing. Well, we're going to link to the 9 secrets. We'll link to your website. To those of you listening, especially if you are a consultant, a coach, an author, a business owner, an expert of any kind, I highly recommend reaching out to Tom. He's, as we discussed today, been a storyteller for 30 years now. He's heard them all, and he can absolutely help you tell yours. So, Tom, thank you for joining us in the Lion's Den.
Nico, thank you. It really has been a blast, and I hope everybody listening found this helpful.